A little knowledge that acts is worth infinitely more than much knowledge that is idle. Khalil Gibran. My friends, 10 to 15 minutes each and every day, acting, using that knowledge that you have, even if it's just a little bit. It is much better than people who think they know everything and do nothing. 10 to 15 minutes a day. Of course, things have been going swimmingly well for us lately. I told you to stay with us through the crappy summertime trading zone. And guess what? As we leave it, things are moving in the right direction. You might say, but Tom, the market's going down. Yes, it's accurately going down. And we've been tracking it. We closed out our down trade on the S&P 500 using SH, that's Sierra Hotel. That is, again, SH is the symbol that you want to look for. It is the inverse of the S&P 500, down 3.7% in just a few days. Quite nice. That trade wrapped up for us. Why did we jump into it? Because, of course, we went below the 200 EMA. We saw, that's the exponential moving average. That shows us that the market was trending down on this half-day chart. And of course, we saw the STC switch over. We had a day of down movement. I know a lot of you are saying, oh, we missed the big down move because the STC didn't rotate over, but it did later. And when it did, we jumped in. And of course, it moved down quite nicely. And of course, scored us a 3.7% profit in our practice trade. Where are we on the 2-day? Well, the 2-day was helping us going in our direction. 4 down candles, actually sort of accelerating down. That's nice. And what did the weekly do? Of course, the weekly rotated over this week on the way down, which is always nice to see that go in with you. That meant that on the success multiplier formula, by the time we ended this trade, we were a negative 15. That means going down. We give 10 points to the weekly and where it is on the STC. We give 4 points to the 2-day and where it is on the STC. And of course, 1 point to our half-day chart. You want to know about the success multiplier formula? I'll put that training at the end of today's video. So look for it. Oh, by the way, Patreon members, I published before doing today's show 20 weekly vertical crossovers. Not a single one going up. Remember last week we only had 3 weekly vertical crossovers. That's the lowest I've ever seen. That meant something was brewing. And of course, what was brewing was a big downturn. And that is what we have seen. Let's leave the S&P 500, go to the NASDAQ 100. That trade closed out today. You can see in the morning that was even nicer than the S&P 500, down 4.59% in a few days. And of course, that was beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And that another successful practice trade. I kept telling you guys that sell in May and go away, live to trade another day. That indicates how difficult it typically is in the summertime trading zone. During COVID, it was a weird time. Nothing worked like it typically does. Went back to that regular scenario. Not a lot of volume in the summertime. What does that mean? It means it's easy to affect the markets, or easier. So you have sort of haphazard, more difficult movement many times, but it's still worth practicing through. If you can successfully do things in the summertime, then we get in the fall winter trading zone. You're going to feel much better. And of course, it is proving its worth. Now, let's keep looking. Well, about the same thing here on the 2-day and on the weekly, as we saw with the STC, with that down movement and the confirmation in that down movement too, with the weekly going red this week. So that was on the STC. Now, let's see where we are on bonds. Well, we got out of bonds, of course, successfully back on the 20th, down 2.59%. That was a successful trade also. You might wonder, Tom, why did we stay in when things went to green? Well, there was a good, compelling reason to do that. We were well below the profit, or the loss band, well into the profit band. And as we checked, the volume also wasn't super high with this up move. And of course, it did die and scored us a nice win on that one too. And you might say, well, that's a little against the rules because things went green on the STC. It is. And if you practice, you know when you can break the rules and when you have to stick by them. Was that a bit of a calculated risk? Yes, we could have gotten out, taken a small profit and been done. I didn't oppose that, didn't oppose people doing that. But again, I stayed in, risked a loss of that profit. Even if things had gone against me, probably wouldn't have cleaned me out totally, but it didn't. And that was based on experience. Now again, the reason you practice is to get that experience, know what to do and what not to do, when to obey the rules completely and when to let things ride. That only comes with experience. And again, a little knowledge that acts is worth infinitely more than much knowledge that is idle. So if you're just sitting by, listening to me every day, not engaging, not practice trading, not picking your own favorite stocks and ETFs that you track on a daily basis and that you practice trade, you aren't getting all you could get from your 10 to 15 minutes a day. That is where we are on bonds. They were down for the day, 2.55%. Could you still be in them? I guess you could, but you know what? My 2-to-1 risk to reward ratio working over and over again for me, I'm happy to take that and be done with it. Take that chunk out of the middle and enjoy it. We can also see bonds again steadily moving down on the 2-day and the weekly. We'll wait for things again to reverse, go back to green like we saw here. And when they do, and again, we want to see it move all the way from the bottom to the top. As we saw back here, it stutter stepped on us and then went on up and then rolled over. And that is when we jump in. Remember, we don't trade in this middle band here. So that is where we are on bonds. Let's go to gold, see where gold is. We already took our chunk out of gold in a day and a half, 1.58%. When again, things rolled back up into the green and then crossed over. We jumped in, 2-to-1 risk to reward ratio, took that quite nicely. Gold about flat for the day, down 0.06%. 2-day in gold is still negative. Weekly in gold is still negative. And look at gold as it pushes through that 200 EMA. That's telling us something when it's on that big weekly chart for sure. Look at where we are going green here. We want to see that go all the way up through this middle band, reset for us like we saw here, maybe give us another opportunity to short gold. Maybe not. If that happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. What's up lastly with Bitcoin? Well, again, not a lot. Bitcoin up for the day 1.90%. Of course, a few days ago, we saw Bitcoin spike up only to crash again. What is Bitcoin actually doing? Well, it's making its what? Third, 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe fourth bottom it did last week, around that 1820 mark or so. Hopefully this could be a bottom for Bitcoin, but we don't have any confirmation on that yet. We see it on the 2-day. We see it again on the weekly. I thought I was at the weekly just then. Yes, it's 3 weeks where we've seen it. And this week included in there around that 1820 mark. So again, keep an eye on things. We'll see how they continue to move. And remember, the way Bitcoin goes, what follows? The rest of that crypto space, those crypto-related ETFs, the other cryptocurrencies. Bitcoin is so big and massive when it comes to the scale it is of all the cryptocurrencies. When it starts to rise, it's like the tide coming into a harbor. All those other boats are going to be lifted. So that's what we're waiting for, seeing how it's going to shake out. That's where we are, folks. Appreciate you being with us. Again, Patreon members, your 20 weekly vertical crossovers for you to look at, check out, and perhaps practice trade. A couple of them tomorrow are there for you. God bless, my friends. All the best. And by the way, thank you to all the new Patreon members. When we get your membership notice, we send you out immediately that initial package. And of course, it includes Options Made Simple, The Charting Wealth Way, that 3-part series that's your start in learning how to trade options. God bless.